Six oh one, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for a short prayer and a salute to our flag. Almighty God, grant us the wisdom to make those decisions that are in the best interest of all of our residents. May the Heavenly Father of us all bless those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, and may He watch over and protect our servicemen and women now guarding the gates of freedom. Salute to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Terry, notice of publication.
Take notice that this special meeting of the mayor and council being held on this 6th day of June 2016 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Here.
Grillo.
Here.
Kilpatrick.
Here.
Lembo. Novak.
Here.
Rittenhouse.
Here.
At this time, we're going to go to the engineer's report on the emergency repairs to the water tank on Ernston Road. Dave Samuels.
In late April, we made an inspection of the Ernston Road tank. We found that there was a small amount of water coming out of the bottom of the tank.
They won't hear you in the mic, Dave.
Okay, is that better? In late April, we made an inspection of the Ernston Road tank, found that there was a small amount of water coming out from the bottom of the tank. As a safety precaution, we asked the water department to drain the tank so that we can go in and examine it. We went in, we found that there was a series of cracks along the bottom of one of the sides of the tank, and as a result of that, we've had specialists in there to try and determine the best way of fixing it. We have determined that the estimated cost for that, per the report that I gave you on Friday, that everyone had, was about $111,670. The good news is that, not that that is not good news, but the good news is that because of the fact that there was excess allowances in the water tank rehabilitation contract, the actual change order amount will wind up being $76,539.73. We have to get the tank back into operation for the summer. We've negotiated with the contractor, and hopefully the repair should be done before July 4th weekend, which is vital for us. So we are recommending to you approval of that change order so that we can have this work done.
Arthur?
Yes. Thank you, Dave. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the change order number 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Buchanan.
Yes.
Grillo.
Yes.
Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Lembo. Yes. Novak.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
The second item for tonight's meeting is the police radio proposals. Since one of the radios is brought to us by Middlesex County, I'm going to ask for anyone that works for Middlesex County or is seeking employment with them recuse themselves from this from the dais. Is there any objection to that request?
No.
Okay, with that, we're going to go to VCOM and their representative to make their presentation. Yeah, Chief, if you would.
If you don't, is this on?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I just would like to do the
Absolutely.
introduction, and before doing the introduction, just a quick few words to recap where we were. About 6 to 8 weeks ago, we came in front of the mayor and council to provide guidance on the purchase of a new radio system, provided a recommendation and some information at that time. There was some concern by council at that time that perhaps the information was too brief and did not cover all the subject matter that needed to be covered in order to make that decision appropriately. So we went back to work. We took a look at the contract prices that were provided and the other contract prices that came in afterwards. I would have to tell you at this stage, we probably have the most comprehensive review of a radio system available at this time. In a moment, I'm going to introduce Mr. Dominic Villeco from VCOM to explain a little bit further in better depth some of the issues that we addressed as a committee over the last 18 months. But before I do that, I do want to say thank you to the vendors that did provide information to us, that continued to provide cost information and whatever else we needed to be able to come up with that decision. I also want to thank the members of the county that were very informative and gave us a lot of information as well. And I want to thank the mayor and council as well. This additional time really gave us an opportunity to dig in and make sure that we were in fact correct in our recommendation, correct in the way that we did our evaluations, and we appreciate that additional time. I hope tonight that Mr. Villeco will be as informative as possible. He's going to give you a presentation. If he doesn't answer your question, I know that he is prepared to answer whatever questions that you may have on this. The presentation can only be so long, but if there are additional questions, please ask him, and I'm sure they're going to be ready to provide those answers. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Mr. Villeco from VCOM for that presentation.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
If you'd state your name and your company and the town you're located in for the record, please.
Dominic Villeco, I'm the principal in the firm VCOM, and we're located in Cranberry, New Jersey. Mayor, Council, we've submitted a package to you, which I believe you all have copies of. We submitted it last week. I'm sorry, is that better?
Yeah.
Not close enough. Mayor, Council, we've submitted a package to you. I believe you all received it last week. There is a PowerPoint in there. What I'll do is I'll walk through the PowerPoint. In addition, there is a memo from Margaret Lyons, who is our Director of Engineering, had done some of the majority of the analysis here of the different proposals. And there is also a spreadsheet that identifies just some highlights of the different proposals. I had not planned to go through those, the memo or the spreadsheet, but we could if you have questions. I planned on walking through the PowerPoint presentation. So if you turn to page 2 of the presentation, what I'd like to do is go through the chronology, the sequence of events that led up to tonight's proposals and tonight's presentation. In November of 2015, this project's been going on for a little while, as you're aware. In November of 2015, the borough had requested New Jersey state contract proposals from both Tactical Public Safety, who is associated with Harris Corporation, and also Motorola Solutions for a new 700 megahertz public safety system. In January of 2016, we were engaged by the borough to review these proposals and provide recommendations. Both proposals at that time were deficient with respect to the borough's needs. Things like waterproof radios, 911 system, that type of thing. What we did in February of 2016 was we prepared technical specifications. We developed those specifications and gave them to both vendors. And I say here, see notes below. A couple slides later, you'll see just a highlight of the specifications, not all the specifications. Specifications were actually 4 or 5 pages of specifications. In March of 2016, responses were received from Tactical Public Safety Harris and also Motorola. We reviewed those responses and we had asked for clarification. On April 4th, we presented a review of the proposals and recommendations, and our recommendation at the time was that the standalone system was the greatest value, use of the county system was the lowest price. And in that recommendation, Motorola was the lowest compliant pricing in both of those scenarios. The April 11th Borough Council meeting in the closed session, there was unanimous agreement to move forward with Motorola for the contract for the standalone 700 megahertz system. In April 25th, there was a council meeting that night as well. But prior to that, Mr. Frankel had received a best and final offer for a lower maintenance cost from Tactical Public Safety Harris. So that was prior to the meeting sometime that afternoon. On the meeting of the 25th, that's the meeting that the chief was referring to, where the council was looking for more details and more information, and the council decided that the special meeting, which is now tonight, was needed to discuss the pricing and the options in a public meeting for both the vendors and the county to be invited, and original meeting date was set for the 2nd of May. On April 28th, we received from Mr. Frankel 2 additional options, the full best and final offer from Tactical Public Safety and Harris. On May 6th, we requested clarification to Tactical Public Safety, and in there you will see the memo that we have in there from Margaret Lyons to myself. That was her questions, and she's actually got the answers in there. So if it's in color, hopefully it's in color for you, you'll see the answers are in blue. So that's the combination of the questions from May 6th as well as the responses that we had gotten from Tactical Public Safety. On May 18th, Tactical Public Safety submitted answers to the questions and a second best and final offer to VCOM. Motorola had submitted their best and final offer. Any questions to this point?
I don't need a history lesson.
Page 4 of the presentation.
One quick.
Yes.
On April 4th, should be noted, the county was also in attendance at that meeting,
That's correct.
the April 4th meeting. Thank you.
That is correct. Right, representatives from the county were the administrator and also the fire marshal.
Yes.
On slide 4, this talks a little bit about the specifications that were given to the 2 vendors. What we call option 1 was a standalone 700 megahertz P25 phase 2 system with 2 sites. The 2 sites that you're currently operating off of today, Pulaski Water Tank and the Raritan Street Tower. A redundant core, which is sort of the hub or the main controller, antenna systems and backup battery power at both sites. Option 2 was to utilize the Middlesex County 700, 800 megahertz phase 2, P25 phase 2 system. So really, there's 2 options, and I'll get into the third in a second. Both options required new mobiles and portables, and I've got quantities here, 364 portables, 277 mobiles. We were looking for IP67. It's an industry rating for dust and water intrusion, so we're looking for IP67 rated portable radios and encryption for the police department, some motorcycle radios, also some indoor radios to be used at the consoles or the dispatch positions. We looked for 5 radio dispatch consoles or dispatch positions, a next generation 911 call taker positions, quantity of 5, new dispatch furniture, quantity of 5, and the request was to integrate into the existing computer-aided dispatch and voice logging solutions. You have a relatively new digital voice logger, so the request was to integrate into that. Option 3, which at the April 11th meeting we talked about very briefly, and I can answer any questions tonight about that. Option 3 was a hybrid solution. The hybrid solution was to build 2 new sites here in town, the same sites, Pulaski Water Tank and Raritan Street Tower, but tie that back to the county core. So if there's any questions to this point? All right, page 5. We received 2 different best and final offers. So I've got a table here that shows best and final offers dated the 25th of April, and best and final offers dated the 18th of May. On the first one from Tactical Public Safety Harris, the one from April 25th was not compliant. We didn't have the IP67 radios. There is a $15,000 accessory allowance that we had requested. We typically request this because regardless of how many accessories like belt clips and microphone clips and things like that. There's usually something that's missing, so we usually ask for an extra allowance. We are missing mobile antennas, missing some dual control heads, and there's a few other things, and a lot of that's outlined in that memo. So what we did was Margaret put together that memo and requested clarification. And on the 18th, actually, let me back up. Motorola, there was no best and final offer requested as of for that April 25th date. In fact, the best and final offer that was submitted on the 25th was just submitted. It wasn't actually requested. It was submitted, as I had said earlier, to Mr. Frankel prior to the last council meeting. On the 18th of May, we received an additional best and final offer, one from Tactical Public Safety Harris, and we received one also from Motorola. Tactical Public Safety's best and final offer, second best and final offer, was not compliant as well. It was missing UPS for the backup power systems. Now, the UPS was in the first two proposals. It just wasn't in the third proposal here. It was missing mobile installation, so the installation of all the mobile radios, again, in the previous proposals, not in this proposal. And again, it was missing the $15,000 accessory allowance. Motorola's best and final offer on the 18th of May was compliant. It had everything that we had requested in the specifications. Any questions? Page 6, what I'll do is just for your reference, I'm going to go through, these charts are from the March 2016 proposals. So what we did was, I'll walk through this first chart here. What we did was we came up with the capital expenditures or the hardware purchase. We came up with, and that was the proposals that were submitted by the vendors. The OpEx, or the operating expenditures, would typically be the maintenance, software upgrades, warranty, that type of thing. So that's what we have in the OpEx. That's years 1 through 5. And then we have a column here for county fees, and in the standalone system, there would be no county fees. So the other thing we did was we had site upgrades. The two sites that you have, we haven't been out to your sites yet to specifically come up with what the upgrades are required, but we know that there are some upgrades required. So what we did is we put a $100,000 allowance for the two sites for upgrades like upgraded air conditioner, that type of thing. And this is an estimate at that point, but we believe it's a pretty reasonable estimate. So we added this to actually all of the costs. So if you take, if I look at this first option for the Harris Tactical Public Safety standalone system, it was just over $3 million in capital expenditures. It was a little over $370,000 in operating expenditures, plus we had $100,000 in site upgrades, which would put them at just over $3.5 million. Again, this is from the March 2016 proposal. Motorola, using the same methodology, Motorola had $2.3 million in capital expenditures, had $400,000 in operating expenditures, plus the $100,000 in site upgrades, would put them at 2.8. So for the standalone of the previous proposals, we had 2.8 million for Motorola versus 3.5 for Tactical Public Safety Harris. Go to page 7. Page 7 was option 2. That was to join the Middlesex County system. Again, the March 2016 proposals, the original proposals. The Harris Tactical Public Safety option to join the county radio network was just over $2 million in capital expenditures, $160,000 or so in operating expenditures, and at the time we had county fees of $205,000 over the first 5 years. That would bring that to a total cost of ownership of $2.4 million over the first 5 years. The Motorola option to join the county network was $1.69 in capital expenditures, $50,000 in operating expenditures, the same $205,000 for the county fees, the proposed county fees at the time, for a total of 1.9. So it was 2.4 versus 1.9. And that was prior to receiving these best and final offers. So, fast forward to May 18th. What we did was we included the May 18th proposals on here, not the, there was only one from April 25th, as I had mentioned, and that was not compliant, as I had mentioned. The Harris Tactical Public Safety option for a standalone system, the CapEx was 1.8 million. However, there were a couple things missing. As I mentioned earlier, mobile installations were missing. The backup power, or the UPS, was missing, and this $15,000 accessory reserve. So what we did was we took their numbers and added them back into that. These are numbers that they had from previous proposals, so we just moved those numbers right over. Added them in for total CapEx of 1.988, same 100,000 in site upgrades, and their operating expenditures for the first 5 years were 289,000 for a total of 2.377. Motorola standalone from the May 18th proposal was 1.845. Theirs was compliant, so there's nothing added in. They had 400,000 of operating expenditures plus 100,000 of site upgrades. They came in at 2.345, so they're actually very, very close, about $32,000 difference. And that was as of the May 18th proposals. Any questions? Okay, page 9. Again, May 18th, best and final offers. This is for option 2 to join the Middlesex County system. The Harris Tactical Public Safety option to join the county system. These were same. We actually did not receive the a proposal from them on that option. We only received it on the standalone option. So what we did was we assumed that the two choices. One was just discounted completely, or we assumed that the price that they had previously, the 1.688, was the same price that would carry through. The previous one was missing mobile installations and the success reserve. So it was 64,000 in mobile installations and 15,000 in the accessory reserve. That would add up to 1.747. Their operating expenditures were the same, 162,000 for total. And in this case here, you'll notice we have no county fees. There were discussions with the county prior to, subsequent to the last meeting, but prior to this meeting, where the county had indicated, and I think they had, in fact, I know they had put it in writing. I think Mr. Joe Krizza put it in writing to Dan Frankel, that the county would waive any fees for the first 5 years. So what we have is we have no county fees in these two tables, as you would say. So what that would do is it would bring the total cost for Harris Tactical Public Safety to $1.91 million. For Motorola to join the Middlesex County network, $1.55 million in capital expenditures, 50,000 in operating expenditures for a total of $1.6 million. So about a $300,000 difference. So finally, as we get to page 10, the recommendations. First point, Motorola had provided a compliant best and final offer. Tactical Public Safety Harris needed items back in to be compliant. They needed the UPS or the backup power system. They needed mobile installation, both of which were included in the first best and final offer, but excluded from the second best and final offer. The $15,000 accessory credit was not included in any proposal, and as I mentioned a minute ago, the county option, second best and final offer, was not submitted. The recommended most cost-effective and greatest redundancy solution is the one that we believe you get the most value, is the standalone solution. The borough is going to get approximately, because of the competitiveness of this particular process, the borough is going to get about $4.5 million worth of equipment for about $2.3 million. So it's pretty significant savings to the borough. The borough will also have a backup system in the county. The county will be an interoperability solution that becomes the default backup, and it can work in both directions, where if there's a problem with the county system and the county, or capacity, whatever, and the county needs additional service in the area of the borough system, because these are all an open standard, any radios that would operate on the county system could operate on the proposed borough system as well. It meets all technical requirements. All departments are included. Has excellent coverage from the 2 sites. And as I mentioned, Motorola is the lowest compliant proposal, and the tactical public safety proposal was a higher cost when the missing items were added in the analysis. So that would be the recommended, and it's recommended primarily because you get the greatest value. You get the most for your money. You have this backup in the county system. It definitely costs you more than going directly to the county system, but again, you have more redundancy. The least cost solution would be purchasing Motorola radios and dispatch equipment and joining the county system. And the terms of the agreement have to be worked out with the county. Now, the county had given a proposed an agreement to the town. We had questions that went back and forth. As you can see here, a lot of these have already been answered by the county. What needs to be done if you were to move in that direction is that agreement needs to be finalized with the county. And that's it for my presentation. Mike, are there any questions?
Are there any questions from the governing body?
You want to go ahead? You can start.
Oh, first one I'd like to know is, what is the time frame if we do a standalone system, from the time we start until it's completed?
You have existing sites, so my guess is the earliest would be 6 months, and the longest would probably be about 12 months.
Okay, and if we join the county, it's my understanding that would be 6 weeks? We could be operating on the county?
It depends on how long it takes to get the subscriber radios in, the portables and the mobiles. They've got to be installed. You've got to put your 911 system, and you've got to put in the new dispatch console. So 6 weeks is probably a little optimistic, but probably inside 6 months.
Okay, so we're talking about a substantially longer time if we do a standalone system.
It would take longer. It would take longer to build your own than it would to go on the county, correct?
Okay. And in the first meeting we had, our 7-minute meeting, it was said that all we'd have to do if our sites went down, let's say we did the standalone with Motorola, was to be flip a switch. It later became my understanding that it would work if we had a particular piece of equipment that was not in the original bid. Is that now in the new bid, so that if we go with Motorola, we can switch over to the county?
I'm not aware of any additional equipment that would be required to do a switchover. It's a matter of programming the radios with county talk groups and just turning the knob on the radio, which is how you would operate today with any other adjacent towns or the county. I'm not aware of any other additional equipment that's required.
There's not a piece of equipment, because when I had requested, I didn't know the name of the particular piece of equipment. And I was told that it wasn't in the bid package because it wasn't, neither company was asked to provide with this particular piece of equipment. And so it wasn't there. But in reality, Harrison would not need it because it would be Harrison radios in the county.
Well, I can tell you that the second best and final offer from Tactical Public Safety Harris is exactly the same, minus the missing components, as what Motorola's got. There's no additional equipment.
Yeah, well, but Harris wouldn't need it because they are the vendor for the county.
No, there's no tie to the county system in that last configuration. What they have is they have radios that would just be programmed just like Motorola or any other vendor. There's no tie directly to the county system in that second proposal that they sent us.
No, what I'm saying is that if we need the county for backup,
Is Motorola compatible with the county system using Harris?
Yes, they are. This is an open standard. It's P25 Phase 2, which is an open standard. And what happens is Motorola radios would work on the Harris system, just like Harris radios would work on the Motorola system. They're out there working today.
With no additional costs to be incurred by
No,
the
no, it's just
municipality?
programming. So what you do is whoever the user is, let's say the police department, if they're on their normal talk group or their channel, so then let's just say they're tuned to channel 1 for simplistic sake, and for some reason, and let's say channel 1 is the borough's system, for some reason that's not working, whatever the reason is, they could switch to, say, channel 2, which would be pre-programmed, and they would come up on a county radio channel. And other than just switching it, no, that's how it works around the state today. Yeah, the one thing, not to be confused, I'll just make sure that we set the record straight. This is an open standard. Previously, both the county system and the borough system were proprietary standards. So in these, with proprietary standards, what you need is you need some type of a gateway, or maybe that's what you're referring to. You need some type of a gateway to be able to connect the two radio systems. But with an open standard, you turn the radio to another channel that's programmed, say, for the county or for the borough, and it works. They have it today. What happens is I actually spoke to the state about this as well. The state, for Rutgers games, for example, the county has used the state system, which is a Motorola system. So they would use Harris radios on the Motorola system to handle Rutgers events. Down in Atlantic County, which is a Harris system, the state has worked with the county, and they have Motorola radios for interoperability purposes, the same thing, like this default, working on the Harris system, because it's all the same standards, and it's all an open standard.
No interruption of service, same 95% guarantee coverage.
Well, the coverage is whatever the system provides coverage.
Okay, so using a standalone Motorola system, would we get the same guaranteed percentage of coverage and functionality as we would with a Harris standalone or a Harris County?
Well, there is no guaranteed percentage of, in any of these proposals, there's no guaranteed percentage of coverage and reliability. There was a reference in the Harris proposal to 95% countywide, but not specific to the borough. It was a reference to it, but there's nothing outlined in a guarantee. There's no recourse, there's nothing like that. It just says 95% coverage throughout the county is what it says. It doesn't say for the borough, it says for the county. My question would be, there's no recourse, there's nothing in there. So the question is, what's behind the guarantee? So I understand there's a guarantee, but what's behind it? So let's say there was a 95% coverage. There's no recourse in there. There's nothing in the state contract that says they're going to build a third site or anything like that. There was a reference in the one Harris proposal that said 95% countywide coverage is what it said, not borough coverage.
Can Motorola offer that? Not if obviously Harris is willing to put 95% say county coverage. We'll just go with that. Can Motorola do a 95% guarantee coverage in the county?
For the county?
Well, the same language that Harris has. I'm curious as to why one vendor would guarantee a 95% coverage in the county if the systems are, from what it sounds like, completely the same. That Motorola, Harris, Motorola, regardless of whether you're on the county or not. Is Motorola going to offer the same 95% guarantee as Harris does under a county?
In the county.
Well,
the
because you're telling
county
me that's
system
not
is a
right.
Harris system. It's not a Motorola system.
Right, so my question to you, you already told me that Harris already put in writing that there was a 95% coverage within the county. I just want to know, does Motorola offer that same exact language? Can they guarantee
We
that?
did not see that. I mean, you'd have to ask Motorola, but my guess would be probably not.
Okay, I just want to.
No, understood. Sure.
Mr. Vallejo, a question. You said that Harris had said they will guarantee a 95% coverage, but there was nothing there to state how they're going to guarantee it, what the recourse is if they don't reach that goal.
That's correct. It was a statement. And
Kinda
frankly, the reason that we didn't put anything about coverage guarantees in the technical specifications was because we were given the vendors the two sites, your two existing sites. We had independently run our own coverage models and determined that the town was covered very, very well. We actually got similar coverage models back from both Motorola and from Harris that basically matched what we had. So the physics of it is that at these frequencies on those towers with these types of antennas at that power level, the coverage is going to be the same regardless of whether it's Motorola or it's Harris. It's just the physics of it. So we didn't put it in there because they were two sites, the two existing sites. The two sites are more than usable, and they provide the coverage that you need. So it was actually never a requirement in there.
It was just I just
Sure.
wanted to see
Oh, no,
why it was
absolutely.
provided within one and not the other, so.
If this passes today, there'll naturally be a contract drawn up. That 90% coverage, if it was put in the contract, and that there was some fail-safe as to what would happen if they didn't reach that 95% goal. Would Motorola be willing to put that in the contract?
Are you talking about coverage of the borough or of the county?
Well,
Because the 95% claim is county, not borough.
Okay.
So my question, I guess, would be, are you looking for coverage of the other parts of the county if
Well-
they don't make the 95%? Because the borough coverage is the same by either vendor because they're the same sites.
Okay. But like you said, I'm saying if something was put in the contract that they had to guarantee 95% coverage. You see, I'm a first aider. I'm always out of town.
Sure.
We have real frequency problem fall off when we leave town. That's one of the reasons, I'll be honest with you, I favor the county because of the frequency drop-offs. When I'm in Robert Wood Hospital, I cannot hear Sayreville Police calling me. The same thing with St. Peter's. Less so, JFK is a real problem, less so with Perth Amboy or Old Bridge. But if we went with the county system, we wouldn't have that frequency drop-off. And from our standpoint, we're always out of town. We are never in town.
Got an additional handout here. That maybe helps explain some of these things. Let's talk about the redundancy. It's labeled the redundancy matrix. Let's talk about the way this is going to work. If, with
Answer me.
both current
Yeah.
proposals, what happens is you are a talk group, or in other words, a channel, I mean, it's the way to simplify it, on the county system. So regardless of the radio manufacturer, whatever the coverage is of the county system is the coverage that you would get on that radio. So if you go outside of your coverage area of the borough, then you would need to use the county, or in this case here, we've got a couple different levels. So let me just walk through, just to see if this maybe helps answer some of the questions. So I have three columns here, three primary columns. There's the system description, there's the standalone, and then there's the county system. So if you go across, the primary communications in a standalone system would be this 700 megahertz standalone, two-site system, P25 phase 2. That's the technology that we're using. You have good coverage, as we've discussed, and you have sufficient capacity. If you were to go on the county system, you'd have 700, 800 megahertz, multi-site system with two sites covering Sayreville. Again, same technology, P25 phase 2. This is the open standard. Again, good coverage and sufficient capacity. Your backup level, when you go either outside of the town, or you go to, let's say there's some failure on your standalone system for some reason, you would then fail over to the, or you'd have it set up where you could go over to the county 700, 800 megahertz multi-site system. Again, same two sites cover Sayreville, P25 phase 2, same thing, sufficient capacity, good coverage. If you're in the county system, what's going to happen is if for some reason something happens with the county system, you're going to switch over to their 800 megahertz channels, which are located at Tower Center. They have two channels. Now, if there's a problem with the county system, what's going to happen is other users are going to experience this, and the two channels that they have there as interoperable channels or backup channels as well.
Hold on one second. Can I just ask you, with
Yes.
the county system, is this comparable to, and you got to forgive me here because this is not my expertise.
No, understood.
So it's my understanding the county system has a brand-new system that they are now moving municipalities onto recently, within the past month or so, and several municipalities moving in within the next couple of days. True?
I'm not sure who's moving over, but I know they have a new system, yes.
Okay, so I know that there's already municipalities using a new county system, and.
I know there's municipalities using the old county system as
Okay,
well,
well, that's
right.
why I wanted clarification here. Because I know I spoke to a couple of police officers, I did my due diligence, I made some calls in the past couple of weeks. So I know of at least one municipality, smaller, that's already been functioning under the new Middlesex. They've been switched over to the new Middlesex County radio system. That's Highland Park, okay? They're functioning, they're working, they've been on there about a month, I guess.
Okay, that's fine. I believe you.
And then you have the old system, which I believe, is it called EDAC?
That's an EDAC system, correct.
Okay.
That's
Is
their
that-
proprietary technology.
Okay, okay. So when you're showing me this comparison between the standalone and the county system, which county system are we comparing to?
Oh, we're
this-
talking about the new one.
You're talking about the new one.
This is apples and apples, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
know,
no,
I
we're
know,
not talking
but
about the EDAX at all, because I know that
Okay.
the county's plan is to move everything away from EDAX. and
yes.
move it Right, no. So this is
I
only.
just want to make sure.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's where I'm
absolutely.
going.
No, that's a very valid question. This is only comparing a new P25 standalone to their new P25 system.
Okay,
It's
okay.
apples for apples, yep.
Regarding this chart, what
Yes.
is coverage gauged by? Is that the county or is that the borough?
I'm sorry, say that again?
In your chart, you say good coverage. Is that good coverage relative to the county or good coverage relative
That's
to the
good
borough?
coverage of the borough,
Of the borough.
right.
And then, so we don't have a comparison for the county? Or are these,
Well, if you're in the county system, however you use it, the coverage is whatever the coverage is. So if the vendor states that they have 95%, on face value, you're going to have 95%,
but this is, we're looking at right now is based on the borough.
based on the borough. Now,
Okay.
what happens is the way that the two sites are positioned, you actually have much better than 95% coverage in the borough, because they have the site here at the Fire Academy, which is sort of in the center of town, and they have another site in East Brunswick, which covers this sort of the southern part of town. So you have, from the county system, you have better than 95% coverage. If you're on the county system. If you're on the standalone system, you also have better than 95% coverage, just because of the location of the two sites that you have existing today.
And in your nomenclature, what is sufficient versus fair versus poor? What does that mean? Is there a way to quantify that?
Well, sufficient in your primary, you have licensed 6 talk paths. So today, what you have on your current standalone system, you have the equivalent of 4 channels. On the new system, it'll be 6 channels. So you have more than enough capacity. The county's actually got a significant number of channels. They've got, it's at 16 or more. I forget what the number is, but it's a fair amount of channels. They have a lot of channels. So sufficient capacity in that case would be, you have more than enough capacity, whether you're on a standalone or you're on the county system, for your departments to operate properly. Insufficient capacity comes in when you're either using their interop channels. They only have 2 channels at East Brunswick. That wouldn't be enough capacity, especially if you went over to that because there was some failure on the county system, then everyone would be using it. So it'd be 2 channels for anyone in the area. Same thing, like I talk about, there's other backup levels here where you can use the state system. Problem with the state system is, if you were on their P25 Phase 2 system, they would have sufficient capacity, but they don't have great coverage in the borough. And they have some backup interoperability channels as well. Same thing, there would be only a couple of channels. You'd be probably short on capacity, but more importantly, you have poor coverage. What this chart shows you, is that you have some backup levels. So these are the types of things that when you're setting up the system, you're going to program these in. 2 things are going to happen. One is you're going to work through the agreements with the various agencies, whether it's the county, whether it's the state, as to what this interoperability and what the operational procedures are that go along with that. Because while we talk about just going over and switching the channel, the fact of the matter is this has to be all pre-configured, and you have to work out the agreements more from an operational standpoint so that it happens smoothly, because I know that would be a concern. And it's a concern in all of the public safety industry throughout the state. So you'd have to work these out, and you could do 1, 2, 3, up to 4 levels of interoperability in your radios at that point, regardless of which option you take. In the if you were to take the county system, you have 3 levels that I've identified here. If you were to take the standalone, you'd have 4 levels. You'd have 1 more level. The additional level would be the county system, whereas if you were in the county system, that would be your primary communications.
And am I correct in understanding, to Councilwoman Novak's point previously, that in terms of geographic coverage, the standalone gives us, for lack of a better term, 3 phases versus the county, which only gives us 2? In terms of sufficient...
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
In terms of geographic coverage, right? So Councilwoman Novak mentioned before, blackout spots when she leaves. The standalone, it seems like we've got the primary, the backup, and backup 2, where we would have fair coverage or sufficient coverage. So that gives us 3 options, right? Am I understanding it right?
you would have, well, what would happen is Councilwoman Novak, where she was talking about switching when I go out of town. So I'm outside of the borough. So really, the coverage that you'd have from the borough system is a little greater than the borough, because the way that these things are licensed, the footprint of the system is a little greater than the size of the borough. So once you go past that, let's say you're in New Brunswick or over at Robert Wood Johnson or something like that, what you would do is you would then switch over to the county system. So that would be your primary at that point for interoperability. These second ones beneath it, these are just pure backups. And as you can see, any of these backups after that, they're there, they offer some level of communication. So if everything just falls apart, they're there, but they're not without their, not without issues. I mean, because it's only a few channels, whether it's the county or the state, there's going to be not this great coverage, but it's there as a backup. So, you know, in the event that everything just hits the fan, you do have a third and a fourth level of backup, albeit not a very good level of backup. So I wanted to just point that out. It is there. It is a level of backup. However, they're not great.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Can we go back to just one more thing? Because, I mean, I've been beating my head for just weeks and weeks and weeks, and you guys have worked so hard. I want to make sure that I'm hearing this the right way, because I think I heard it different the last time I asked this question. Does the Motorola system, if we went standalone, Motorola, something catastrophic happens and the system goes down, the Motorola system can go right onto the county system. We can take our Motorola standalone system and we can now go to the county with no issue and we can be up and running. Yes or no?
No, that's not exactly correct.
Okay, explain.
There are two components here. There's the subscriber units, the radios themselves, the car radios and the walkie-talkies.
Gotcha.
That's one component. The second component is the system, the two towers. So let's say the two towers just goes off the air. The first thing that happens with either one of these vendors, I have a note on the bottom here that says fail-soft mode is an intermediary mode between the primary and the backup level. So I didn't put that in here specifically, but basically what happens is for either vendor, if something happens with, say, the main controller, for some reason it hiccups, these sites go into, without getting into the details, but go into sort of like a free running mode. So there is communications there. So worst case, that happens. But let's say the thing just catastrophic and for whatever reason everything goes down. The county, it's not the borough system. What it is it's those subscriber radios, the portables and the mobiles. What they have is they have county channels programmed into them. So what happens is if that system goes off the air, they just turn the knob to the second. Turn a knob and they're on the county system. And that's all pre-programmed. So, I mean, it's automatic in that all the operational procedures have to be worked out and it's pre-programmed. So that's how it works.
Okay.
So if you were to go today, if you were to do interoperability or mutual aid with another department today that had the same frequencies, say a neighboring department, same type of thing would happen where you could set it up where you just go to, you turn it over and let's say Old Bridge, not that, you know, close enough, but Old Bridge is putting up a new system. So if you were on the Old Bridge system, if you needed to use it for some reason, you would just have Old Bridge, if you chose to, programmed into your radios, and then you would switch over to the Old Bridge channel and it would be talking.
Okay.
And what we would do is you would tie the consoles back to, through just a radio link, just like it's any other mobile called a control radio, you tie it back to whatever system they're talking to. So it would just bridge a different tower is what it would do.
It's seconds. It literally.
As long as it takes you to move the knob, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay, that's no additional cost, nothing.
No, and the same thing would happen today. So if you're on the county system, for example, let's say that you have your own talk group. So let's say the police or EMS have their own talk group. In other words, it's kind of like their own private channel. And let's say that you needed to go into a mutual aid situation with another town nearby. What would happen is you and the other town would both switch over to, assuming they're on the county, you would both switch over to that new channel that was already set up on the county, which was an interoperability talk group, so that you can both talk. Because normally what would happen, and I'll just use Old Bridge as the example again. Normally, you and Old Bridge wouldn't normally be on the same talk group. But for some reason, maybe you and Old Bridge need to talk to each other. Well, you would both switch. So you would do it anyway, even on the county system. It's as automatic as turning it themselves. The only difference is the county system is very large. You know, so when you drive out of the borough, you don't have to switch to, you're just on your same talk group. But if you're talking to someone else outside of the borough, you'd have to switch. So it'd be the same procedure.
Okay, that's, go ahead.
this is, if I'm in New Brunswick and I can't reach the town, I can switch over to another system, another town, so that I can talk to them. But, and this has happened often, Sayreville is trying to reach me. Now, if I've switched over, I can't hear them, and half of the time I can't hear them when we're on the same channel. Once I'm in New Brunswick, up at JFK, I can't hear them until I get closer to home. And that,
If you
with the
need to-
standalone system, is that not going to happen anymore?
On the standalone system, if the coverage, and we haven't looked at it in New Brunswick specifically, but likely it won't make it to New Brunswick where you're talking about. On the standalone system, you will not be able to talk on the standalone system, but what will happen is the dispatcher and you will switch over to this county talk group, and then you'll be able to talk.
But somebody would have to tell me to switch over that they're trying to reach me. So we'd have to both be mind readers that I can't be heard.
There would be operational procedures.
It's not
That would all
just,
be, the way that these things are configured and planned is all that's planned out ahead of time, and that becomes one of your operational procedures. Frankly, whether it's you or whether you're on a standalone or a county system, it's the same thing. You're going to, again, I go back to the mutual aid situation, where you've got to talk to another town.
Right.
You would then both switch over to this. Someone would have to tell you to switch over, but that would be part of your operational procedures.
well, that is, if I'm answering a call in South River, as soon as I call in service, I then switch over to South River, talk to them, and as soon as I'm done, I go back to Sayreville so I can communicate with my dispatcher. But if my dispatcher is trying to call me and I can't hear them, and that happens now, and with the standalone system, from what I can hear, it's still going to happen. Both of us would have to know enough to switch over.
It happens now because you have proprietary systems, and you can't have, you know, we talked about the EDAX radio. You don't have a radio, like you can't take one of these radios today on the borough today and talk to the existing county system. They just won't talk. They're
No.
both proprietary, they just won't talk. So that'll happen. The new systems, standalone, whether it was Harris or whether it was Motorola, what would happen is they'd be P25, phase 2, they're compatible with each other, the same frequency range, so it's a matter of switching buttons. So you'll have the ability where you don't have the ability today.
But if I was on the county system, neither one of us would have to do any switching. I should have coverage throughout the county.
If you were on the county system, you'd have the same talk group throughout the county, that's correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, with a standalone.
Yes.
Is there any situation, assume the worst catastrophe possible, where every community or the vast majority of communities have to go to the county system? Is there any way that we would ever be sort of blocked out due to a capacity issue? I'm thinking worst case scenario. Is there any way that our first responders couldn't access the county as a backup?
The only thing that I could think of, the county's got a fair amount of radio channels. The only thing that I could think of is if you take a Sandy, where there's just a lot of radio traffic at the same time. It may be that with that sheer volume of traffic, all these talk groups that don't normally operate, even in emergency situations, there's a heightened awareness. But generally speaking, the county's got pretty good capacity, and it should be able to handle most situations. Like I said, you know, if an entire area is flooded by something like Sandy, it's entirely possible that everyone's trying to access it at the same time, and there's too many talk groups and just not enough channels. That's a possibility. The county's got more channels to handle something like that, but that would be sort of the extreme where that would happen.
And if we-
Otherwise, I think in most emergency situations, the county would probably have enough channels, would be my estimation.
Well, I want to go worst case scenario, because we don't want to be in another Sandy and our responders can't communicate because they're essentially blocked out due to capacity. That's the standalone. So you're saying that it could happen. We don't know. With the
Well, if you have, I'm sorry for interrupting. If you're standalone, if your standalone system's up and operating, and it's a worst case situation, you have enough capacity.
our standalone, the scenario is our standalone goes down.
Okay,
We have to go to the county.
right.
The county is being inundated by other communities using theirs as a backup. What is the probability that we get blocked out due to a capacity issue?
Armageddon.
I don't know. It would come down to how the county system's configured. One of the discussions that we had with the county was, initially what the county is looking at was an unlimited number of talk groups, which we don't think is actually the case. While the system may be able to address an unlimited number of talk groups, the fact of the matter is each one of these talk groups ties up channel or system capacity. So now all of a sudden, like we were talking about, 40 talk groups or so for this town. So if everyone, if DPW, if EMS, if fire, if the police are using 2 or 3 talk groups because they have one for traffic, one for this, one for that, and then you multiply that times the various towns, and you basically have everyone hitting it at the same time with big number of talk groups, I'd say the county system would be able to handle it. While the controllers may be able to address that number of talk groups, there's just not that many physical channels available. So, I mean, that would be, again, extreme situation where everything just hits the fan and everyone's got every talk group lit up.
So is being on the county system, is that a better option in that exact same scenario? Do we have no concern over being blocked out?
No, I think
It just doesn't make a difference. That my question is.
I don't believe it makes a difference.
Okay.
Question, if
Yes.
we were on the county system and the county system went down, do you have reservations about their backup?
Pat, I don't think your mic's on.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't on. Do you have any reservations about the county's backup system if we were on the county system and their system went down?
Well, yes, what the county system has for backup is, and Councilman, you were in the meeting when the fire marshal had indicated they have 2 channels located at East Brunswick.
Right.
So those 2 channels, if it went down, again, it would go into this fail-safe mode first, fail-soft mode, I'm sorry. That would go into that first, and then, if everything just went down completely, yes, they have 2 channels. And that wouldn't be enough. That's not enough for you, actually. I mean, you have 4 channels.
So there would be a possibility of drop calls?
Blocked, not even blocked. Yeah, you would just have blocked. You just wouldn't be able to get through.
Thank you.
So Bina, can I follow up on that? You're saying really if the county system went down with something like that catastrophic, as Councilman Grillo is saying, there really would be no backup. Where if we were standalone,
The county
we could
would be your
back up the
backup.
county and they could back us up.
Right, assuming if your standalone went down and assuming the county's still alive, probability is both of them aren't going down at the same time, then yes, you'd have the county as a backup.
Yeah. I'd like to address some of Mary's concerns about the being able to receive things. The county system, they have not implemented it with the sheriff's department, which I think would have been the first place that they would implement it because it's public safety. One of the reasons is it doesn't go in hospitals and it doesn't go in the courthouse. So because it doesn't work in the courthouse, they haven't been able to implement their system in there. I've done some research also on this. That's a concern to me, and obviously Mary, also you, that if you're losing some of that frequency, we want the best possible scenario to that. I don't understand why the county, they put it in their buses. The AWATS buses are the first thing that the county put it in. And as far as other communities go, I was at the April 25th meeting of the county freeholders, and Mayor Cahill was reluctant because there's buildings in the city of New Brunswick that it doesn't communicate with. And the other larger towns aren't jumping on board, like Woodbridge, Edison. We're one of those larger towns also, because they're worried that the capacity, which was just referred to, that capacity, it keeps filling and filling, we may not have the ability to use all of the talk groups, and again, I'm not an expert in this, but based on the meetings I was at, that we may not have that ability to keep those talk groups or something. So I think it's a concern that they're not using it with their public safety, and yet they want the rest of the towns to put their public safety in. Thank you.
It's my understanding, and I could be wrong, that the county system could hold up to 2,000 talk groups. So if every town in the county got in it, there's 80 talk groups per town. We only want 40 now, so it seems to me there would be more than sufficient talk groups.
Talk groups, yeah, but the problem is that each talk group ties up a channel. So the talk group is the internal workings of the network, but then each talk group uses and dedicates a channel. You've only got 16 or some odd channels is what you've got. So it's a ratio of like 16, and I might be wrong on the numbers, I apologize, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. So it'd be a ratio of like 16 to 2,000. So what that says is I can't get 2,000 talk groups to talk on 16 radio channels, not at the same time. And that's what I had identified to Councilman Grillo, which is if everything, in an absolute worst case scenario, and if you have that many talk groups lit up and everyone lights, again, you know, you had DPW who maybe doesn't talk on a lot typically, and all of a sudden they got flooding, they've got trees down, they've got this, they've got that. So now they're starting to activate more than they normally would. And then police have traffic issues and things like that. They're starting to activate, and fire out there because they've got down wires and all that. And you multiply that town to town to town, what happens is there has to be a more organized way to reduce the talk groups to allow everyone to talk and take turns, because the radio channels are the limited resource in that case, not the talk groups. Talk groups can be configured unlimited, but the question is whether or not the radio channels will support the talk groups. And just keep in mind, every talk group needs a radio channel. So there aren't 2,000 radio channels in this system.
How many radio channels will Sayreville have in a standalone system?
4 radio channels.
4.
I'm sorry, six, right. I apologize, right.
6 channels.
6 talk paths is what it is. There's 3 channels, and each channel has 2, equivalent of 2 channels, so it's 6 talk paths. Today you have 4. So you have about roughly a 50% increase over what you have today.
So in what you were just saying before with Mr. Rittenhouse, is it your opinion that there is a concern that in the event of a catastrophic failure and many people have to migrate over to the county, that there could potentially be a point where the county cannot fulfill those, the needs of the municipalities that are on there and those looking to seek channels in the event that something happens?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
If there was a catastrophic failure of your standalone, that would just impact the borough. You would move over to the county. My guess is if the county system's working fine, you're going to work fine. The issue would be if you were on the county and there was a catastrophic failure of that system, there's insufficient capacity in the backup that the county's got. That's the issue.
Which would
You
be
don't
their
have this second level of backup is what it is.
That would be their EDEX system then?
I'm sorry?
That would be the EDEX system that
No,
you're
EDEX is going away.
That's going,
Gone.
that'll be gone.
EDEX is going away, yeah, that's an old
So
technology.
what the
that-
county, so what would the county have then? They would only have their new system and they would have no other backup?
Well, it would go into what's known as
Well, you're saying fail soft?
fail soft, yeah. So what happens is there's limited capacity, but it's sort of a step down, if you will. And, you know, something happens with the controller, there's a link whatever it is, it drops into fail soft, and then when they fix it, it comes back. So you'd go into fail soft first. If everything went down, if it was some reason, some big catastrophic thing, then what would happen is today the only channels that I'm aware of are the 2 channels that are at Tower Center in East Brunswick. So now you'd have 2 channels, and the thing is, in that situation, if anyone that was on a county system, let's say the system or there was a regional outage in this area for some reason, if that were to go down, then what would happen is you would be trying to access the same 2 channels as everyone else. Now, the county's got, and same thing with the standalone, the likelihood of either of these systems going down is not great. The county system is fully redundant. They've got backups. The system that we've requested for you here is a standalone. It's fully redundant. It's got backups. So the likelihood of either system going down is not great. However, if anyone tells you that it'll never go down, then that's a fallacy, because there's no guarantee of anything. Things can happen. The types of problems that you have are, the controller itself may stay up, but then you've got maybe sites that go down because there's flooding at a site. There's a generator that won't start up. The batteries have run down. You can't get to the generator for some reason because you can't get fuel to it. Or, I've had this myself personally where we had a lightning strike one time. Even though we were grounded properly, we had a lightning strike. There was a generator with an automatic transfer switch. So when it senses a loss of commercial power, it automatically switches over. No different than the ones you buy at Home Depot and, higher grade, but the same thing where if you had it at your home, you have an automatic transfer switch. The contacts got fried in this situation, the automatic transfer switch. The thing went down. When the system went down, the batteries ran down. Because of the lightning spike, we lost the alarming capability. Didn't know it went down until it went off the air. And here it was a lightning storm that came through. Again, you ground it properly, you test the grounding, you do these things, but nothing is 100% infallible.
All right, so you've answered a few of my questions here then. Motorola's system does work on the county system, and it can be done by turning a knob. No additional cost.
Correct.
At all. County, no, if we wanted to do that. In the event we go standalone Motorola and something happens, we flip a switch, no additional cost to the borough, and bam, we're up and running, and our police officers, our fire, and our EMS can do their jobs, and our residents are safe. True?
True.
True, okay. Harris guaranteed 95% coverage in buildings in Sayreville and throughout the county. Motorola doesn't have that language because quite frankly, they just weren't asked to put that language in there.
That's correct.
Okay. But we could turn around and push. Harris is offering it,
We could, sure.
Okay. Let me keep going because I've got quite a few questions that I had. You've answered a lot of them, but moving out of Sayreville on a standalone system. Because we can just flip a switch and we can suddenly now communicate with there won't be an issue with our dropping, communications for our EMS or our fire, or if we have to go on a high-speed chase out of town, all of a sudden, we're not going to have any type of radio issues and we'll be able to pick up that other town.
If you're using,
with standalone
if
Motorola.
you're using the county system as your switchover, wherever the county's got coverage, you'll have coverage.
We'll have coverage, okay?
Exactly.
With standalone,
With either.
with either, okay?
Yeah, because the assumption here is that you're using the county outside of the borough. Once you
Okay.
leave the borough system, it's on the county. If you're on the county system, you're using the county in the borough, outside the borough. If you're on a standalone, it's borough system in the borough, county system out of the borough.
Okay. Let's see. You've already said that in the event that we wanted to do standalone system, we're looking at 6, at the best, months, up to a year to build a standalone system.
That's my estimate, yes.
That's your estimate. To go to county, 6 weeks, which
Well, I think 6
best
weeks is optimistic.
is well, just
very
like 6
optimistic.
months is could be optimistic.
6
for-
months is probably reasonable.
Is it reasonable? So 6 weeks is optimistic. What would you say is reasonable for county if we wanted to go to the county, regardless of vendor?
My guess would be 4 to 6 months because it's just a function of getting equipment in. So a lot of this equipment sometimes is 8 or 12 weeks delivery. Then you got to get it in, you got
No
to
reason
set
to
it up.
pontificate, it's fine, it's
Exactly.
approximate,
So
okay,
4 to
I get
6,
it.
it would be a guess.
I'm looking over here now at the operational costs and what they're inclusive of and what they're not inclusive of, when you go standalone or if you go,
Which slide is that on?
I think it's 8, yes, 8. Now, another concern that I have, not saying that we won't go back to something else, but I got to get all these questions answered. There's a lot of money that we're going to be putting out of a budget, so I want to make sure that when I vote, I feel like I have my answers. Standalone system. Right now, we have Mr. Bracken. Terrific. Fabulous. He's our IT everything. What does a standalone system require, manpower-wise, people watching, operating this, to do? We have one guy, I don't know who's running what in the police
Today
department.
you have, well, I know a portion of it falls under Captain Batco. So you have, there's programming, there's more than just the system itself on a
Right.
day-to-day operation. So there's programming, there's managing these subscriber units, there's just changes in the system, things happen over time.
And that's what we have right now.
You're
We
gonna have that regardless.
No, well, right now, we have Captain Bacco,
Right.
and we have Bracken.
And you also have a contract with an outside firm to help with the maintenance of the system.
Okay.
So you would do the same. You don't have any specific radio people on that are qualified to repair these things on staff. So you would go to the outside vendor. In this case here, they give you the warranty and the cost for that for either vendor. But you would, unless you decide to hire your own radio technician, you're probably better off going to an outside vendor who's got the resources, the tools, the training. Extra people can get 24-hour coverage, that type of thing.
Now, my concern is clearly, we're here today because we have a system that has, for whatever reason, become beyond outdated and antiquated and can no longer handle the town's needs.
The technology is
The
basically
technology-
obsolete.
It's
correct.
obsolete.
Right.
And this is one of my biggest problems here in Saraville. Huge. We're here because we don't invest a damn nickel in proactive upgrades or infrastructure. We're here because we didn't do it. My concern is we go standalone, and we have these two wonderful gentlemen here, and the same resources that we have with this same system. I don't want to be here in 10 years, or in 5 years, or in 15 years when this system continues to get more, get older, and now suddenly we haven't maintained it, and we got a bigger problem on our hand. Now with the county, that would all be built into their costs, correct? We wouldn't have to hire outside individuals. I mean, I don't know if two people can do this job of maintaining the standalone system to the level that it needs to be with the soft grades upgrades.
With the county, you'd still have people that would be required to manage the system because you still have dispatch consoles.
Would that be a part of their cost? Is that a part of their operational costs for us that are included within
No,
here?
there's certain things that you just need to do yourself just to manage the radio, whether.
So can
here's-
you break down for me for year 2, 3, 4, and 5, what that operational cost is inclusive of?
I'd have to go back to the specific proposals, but they were, in general, they covered software upgrades, they covered just general maintenance, they covered like depot repair, in other words, repair of the subscriber radios, things like that. The one thing I should note too, and that is that, one, you've got the first 5 years in any of these configurations. We've asked for this.
Yeah, I see.
So this way, at least you're covered for the first 5 years. And you, again, you're going to have, regardless of the system, the county doesn't have dispatch. So it's not like you're washing your hands and you're clean. What you're using, if you use the county system, is just the radio network. You still have dispatch, you still have radio dispatch consoles, you still have the 911 system, you still have your answering center here, you still have, the only thing you don't have is you don't have 2 towers and a controller. But you have everything else. So you're still going to need people to maintain that regardless. So what happens is the incremental cost and time required to maintain two additional towers, you get the radio vendor to maintain that for you as part of a service contract, which is how you do it today. You're going to have that. You actually have service, or you would have service contracts, even on the other gear too, because like Tom is the IT guy. Tom can handle a lot of the IT questions. He can handle that. My guess is with all due respect to Tom, my guess is he doesn't know the ins and outs of some of the specific software. So you'd have to go back to that vendor to get whatever those software bugs, whatever those software problems, whatever the issues are anyway.
And that's what you included within these 5 years, that's inclusive
Well,
within
that would be included in here. Yeah, you would have to work with the vendors. I mean, unless you have we've seen this in most places, unless you have this big staff, and no one does, you've got to rely upon the vendors. Now, what happens is in any of these situations, especially because this is an open standard, what happens is, like you've got today, you can go out to another vendor, say in 5 years, and you can go get competitive pricing if that's what you choose to do from other vendors, say in year 6. But the thing that, let me me hand out this. This might help a little bit as well.
So to call up that vendor and have them come out to, troubleshoot, fix, or whatever, is that inclusive within these figures?
That's included, yeah.
Just, that's it.
We just walk through this. This is another slide that maybe will help. Because I think it's important to realize that if you go in the county system, what you won't have to do is you won't have to maintain the radio towers. You're still going to have to maintain your fleet of radios. You're still going to have to maintain the programming. You're still going to have to maintain your 911 system. You're still going to have to maintain your dispatch. You're going to have to maintain almost everything else. So if the county had, let's say the county had centralized dispatch. Some counties have centralized dispatch. What would happen is and if you used a centralized dispatch, you'd get rid of a lot of those things, and you would, really just go back to whatever the arrangement was, say with the county. But because Middlesex County doesn't have centralized dispatch, and you have your own dispatch center here, there's still a bunch of things that you have to maintain. So let's look at this. Maybe will help point it out. I prepared this in case there were some questions about the differences between standalone county and the hybrid. I know that I had heard some questions about the hybrid too.
That was number 7. I didn't get there yet.
Okay. Well, we can talk about it
do it
now. So if you go across this table, what you have is the system, standalone county hybrid, then you have the technology, et cetera. So let's go across. The technology is the same for all three. Again, it's this open standard, P25 Phase 2, TDMA it's known as. That's the standard. It's the latest and greatest. So one thing to address your concerns about technology and obsolescence. The one thing about the current technology is you're actually on the front end of the technology curve. Whereas, I'm not sure where you were when you bought the old system, but all the vendors have been coming out with this new technology. It's relatively new, a couple of years old, and so you're at the front end of the technology, front end of the product cycle curve. So we've got information on other projects from vendors that show that you're out a good 15 years as far as support, and in some cases more. So the good news is that, again, you're at the front end of technology, so I can't answer other things that the borough may or may not do, but in this case here, timing is right. You're buying the right network, so it'll last you for a while. The second thing is if you look at it says the primary controller / core, so it's usually referred to as the core or the hub or the smarts of the system. On the standalone, it's borough owned and maintained. On the county, it's county owned and maintained. So you'd get out of, again, it would be the core and the towers if you're on the county system. So you wouldn't have to maintain the core. They would maintain the core.
So that's one benefit.
But if you're in the hybrid, what happens is the hybrid uses your 2 towers attached to their core, and you have to buy some gear to add to their core. So, my assumption is there'd have to be some arrangement with the county where, I don't know who owns the equipment, but, despite the legal arrangement at that point, from an operational standpoint, you've got to put some equipment, a couple cards, whatever, or some software license. You've got to put something in the county core to tie your 2 sites to it, to basically accommodate the sites. So, but at that point, what happens is the assumption is the county would then maintain that. If you look at the sites, the standalone, it's the 2 sites that we talked about, Raritan Street, Pulaski Water Tank. The county's got Fire Tower, and it's got the East Brunswick site at Yates Drive. And then if it was the hybrid, it'd be the same 2 sites as the standalone. If you look at the dispatch consoles, and this is what I was talking about, and the 911 answering system, it's the same for all 3 regardless, because you have your own dispatch center and there is no centralized dispatch, so you would be responsible for maintaining that. And then on the bottom here, Tactical Public Safety in Harris. This is the original proposal, and this is after we had gotten these original proposals. Our recommendation was that the hybrid really didn't make any sense. It was a $44,000 savings roughly, so it was almost the same thing at that point. And you still ended up managing some of the same equipment. Motorola actually did not. No cost difference because they did not give a proposal. What I had spoken to them about, that what they told me is for them, the cost for them to tie to someone else's core would basically eat up whatever the savings were. So, there was no difference. So they actually didn't submit it. So you see with the Tactical Public Safety in Harris, It's a nominal difference, 44,000. With Motorola, they basically didn't submit it. But the point is if you look at that center right one, the dispatch consoles and 911 system, in all three configurations, you still have to maintain that. On the sites, what's going to happen is in a standalone or the hybrid, for that matter, you're going to maintain the sites. But if you're in the county system, you won't be maintaining sites. So there'll be some savings there.
Or the core.
Or the core, correct.
So,
But you're still maintaining your subscribers, you're still maintaining your subscriber programming. So there still is a radio management function, is my point.
and the
It's not like it
benefit-
goes away completely.
And the benefit of the borough owning and maintaining its own core is, we have,
Well, you need it for the standalone system, so it goes back to the
no,
redundancy
what I'm
issue.
saying, that's what I'm saying. We need it for the standalone under the county, they own and they maintain. So the benefit in addition to the standalone is we get to own and maintain that. That's a benefit.
Well, I wouldn't call it a benefit, it's
That's what.
not necessarily a benefit. What happens is the standalone's got its own benefits, as we've talked about, to back up the redundancy, but along with that benefit comes the requirement to own and maintain that core.
And that's that's part of the cost.
Right.
Okay, you want to go?
Yeah, I had a question about, an FCC question.
FCC?
Yeah, if we have these channels, now, is it a violation of the FCC laws for us to be using our licenses outside of town?
No. What'll happen is you'll use it wherever the coverage area that is designed and the antennas that are designed to match the FCC license. So as long as you're within the coverage area of your system, no. There's no
Not geographical?
there's no fence at the borough boundary, let's put it that way. Right, it's the limit of coverage.
Okay, ladies, I would like to hear from some of the other people. I had a couple of questions. You're going on about an hour, so if you wouldn't mind, I did have some questions. Maybe some of the other colleagues had some questions, so if you would allow it. I'd like to ask Captain Batko if he'd come up. You can stay there, Mr. Velko. Ron, if you would.
Good evening.
Captain, if you would just state your name and...
Captain Ronald Batko, Administrative Division, Seville Police Department.
Captain, you're also in charge of dispatchers?
I am.
Has there been a lot of problems with dispatchers with either police, fire, or first aid going to New Brunswick, going to Edison? Has anything resulted in loss of life or anything close to loss of life? Is there a $2 million need for us to address this?
I'm not aware of any serious problems. As Councilwoman Novak brought up, there is truth in the matter that our radios are not built to function inside of New Brunswick hospitals. So obviously they would be off the grid. We wouldn't be able to contact them under the current situation. I know of no...
Is this an ongoing problem with other municipalities?
It's always been that way. The system isn't designed that way.
Okay. I mean, do other towns experience the same thing?
It would be the same situation for all towns that are licensed. Obviously, New Brunswick police officers responding to a hospital in New Brunswick would have coverage probably in that hospital. If you were in Monroe, you wouldn't. Our current system has pretty good coverage. It expands beyond the borders of our town. But if you're in that type of environment, sometimes near the x-ray equipment, it doesn't function as you would think it would, and you're at a loss, yes.
Is it a critical?
Well, it's a matter of physics.
No, is it critical? I mean, they're at the hospital. So they
I
have-
think there's alternative ways that we could contact them, cell phones, et cetera, but I wouldn't use the word critical. I don't.
Okay. Are there any questions for Captain Bacco? Captain, how many years have you spent researching the radio system, you and your group?
We've been looking at a new radio system probably for, I know Mr. Bertrand was a business administrator when we started, so how many years has that been back then? And we always, we realized we needed to replace it. It's aging equipment, it's beyond its useful life, and it's still performing, but we need a new system. And through the years, as recently as 3 years ago, Mr. Frankel actually was on board when we had some prices. It was substantially higher. And as you recall, last November you asked me for a number. That was before we had these numbers. I think I responded $4.5–5 million for a radio system. Now we're coming in with, and I was only talking radios. We're getting the whole kit and caboodle for a really, really good price.
Well, I think that's because you had the presence to buy the bandwidth.
I think it's a very competitive market, yes. I think that's a contributing
No,
factor.
my understanding is you saved the borough a fortune, millions, by buying the bandwidth.
I didn't save anything.
Take the credit. Believe me, I'll give you the blame sometimes, but take the credit when you can, Ron. Are there any other questions for
Yeah.
Captain Batko?
Captain, I have a question. Was referred to that you and the IT director work on the radios, and we have the other person outside. Is there anybody else in the department that also helps program or work on the systems, or are you there 24 hours a day?
Well, I'm not there 24 hours a day. I work 40 hours a week, and I have a phone that they reach out and call me. But the radio is self-sufficient. Once you get past the programming of the radios, and that was done years ago. We're not reprogramming radios today. It's running. Our problems are concerned about maintaining it when it goes down, and we have an outside vendor. I'm not a radio technician. We have no technician on staff that actually does component repair or anything. That's left to the professionals, and that would be with any system that I envision that we would get as Mr.
Thank you.
Does the county, that's a good question, Art, and I'm glad you mentioned 24 hours. Does the county offer 24-hour monitoring of all their service components, parts, and things like that?
I believe they do. I think that was in some statement they made in past meetings where they have 24-hour, we would, if there was a failure, we would call it. They also look at their system too. They monitor it.
They monitor it, right? Which is
as we would too, right?
Yeah, that you'd be able to monitor it, but they would have that 24-hour. I mean, like you said, you work 40 hours. I mean, I know that Tom is in here 24.
Well, right, they have the contract with TPS for the service, so they would be
Right.
the ones calling TPS for if their infrastructure slipped.
Who would,
yes.
if we had this standalone, who would we call?
Well, it depends on the vendor, and you're not locked into a vendor for service. It's a competitive market. You could
Okay.
get anyone to service
But it's
anything.
not, this is like normal
Yes,
municipal radio stuff?
correct.
Okay. I did want to ask if there were any representatives from the Harris Company or Motorola here tonight? Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, Captain. Please come up. We'll do Harris first and then Motorola. If you'd state your name, please, for the record.
Mr. Mayor, honorable council people, thank you. My name is Jim Foley. I'm the CEO of Tactical Public Safety. We are the assigned Harris representative who is responsible for this area of New Jersey.
Okay, do you have anything new to add to VCOM's presentation and analysis?
Yes, sir, I do. With all due respect to what Mr. Vallejo has had to say, we have known Dominic a long time. We have a lot of respect for him. But there are a couple of issues that we would like to take with some of the things that were made in his analysis. First of all, mobile installs are included in our system install price. Just because they were not listed separately does not mean that they were included.
You understand, on a municipal contract, if the bid isn't complete, you can be rejected out of hand. I think,
I understand that, Mayor,
just
but
let
our-
me, I'm going to make this statement, just to let you know, when I heard how many times your response was incomplete, I thought it was very gracious of Mr. Vallejo to give you the opportunity to complete your response. So I think as far as being a fair assessment and analysis, I've never seen anything fairer than this. They gave every opportunity to you and your company to fill out the form correctly.
Okay, well, we did provide all of the services that were requested. We just chose to lump it in a different line item in with the system install.
You've
That's
been
not
in this a long
necessarily.
time.
Yes, sir. I've been doing this business for over 35 years.
Yep.
I have no problem with doing that, so the mobile installs are included. The UPSs are included on our number as well. We've included it in our project. We just did not state it on the last equipment list. And what I'd like to say
Do
is...
you know what a problem this creates now? That you didn't fill out, do you know what a problem? We just spent an hour with questions from 2 of the council people on the existing analysis of your response and Motorola's response. So now you're saying you have other things, you didn't put it in the line that you were supposed to put it in, that I assume Mr. Vlecko asked you to respond in a certain manner, and now, after all this, you're going to make the pitch. I don't like this. I really resent this. I don't think that this is above board, and I don't think it's a good way to do business with the Borough of Saraville. That being said, I'll allow you to continue.
Well,
But
thank you, Mayor.
this is going to require another goddamn analysis.
Well,
Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, I
And
do.
it's a real pain in the neck.
I appreciate that, sir.
You're putting the people of Saraville at risk because you won't fill out the response in the manner in which you know it should be filled out.
What we're doing, Mayor, is responding in the most responsible way possible to give the first responders of Sayreville the best value for their
No,
money.
you're responding, it's the best
And
interest of
what-
you.
Well, if, Mayor...
But go ahead.
Okay, we're doing everything we can to give you the best possible system for the lowest possible price. The other issue that we would like to take is that we are willing to guarantee 95% in-building coverage and put it in writing for a standalone system or with the county system. We have no problem in doing that, and these are things that are typically handled during contract negotiations. The state contract does allow for terms and conditions to be negotiated outside of the contract. It's a normal practice. It's done every day. It's a little premature to discuss those things, but we can certainly do that if there were a contract negotiation. That's not unreasonable. So our price is our price. There's nothing to be added. And the other thing that I want to point out is there are additional levels of redundancy with our offering that are not offered by anybody else.
We're not going over them now. You're going to have to, because I'm
I'd
going to
like
have
to
to
hear-
call.
I think they're
Wait a
I'm
relevant,
going to
Mayor.
have
I
to
want-
call another meeting because I'm going to have VCOM do another analysis. Do you understand my frustration?
Wait,
May, I would like to hear this gentleman
All right,
out.
okay, be brief, get right to the point, please. I still have to have the analysis done.
Understand, Mayor. The thing is, we do have a redundant network switching center. That's 2 levels of redundancy. The one thing we have that no other vendor currently has in this offering is we have what's called distributed control point technology, which means that even if we lose both of our system controllers, you're still in a trunking mode and not yet in fail-soft. We then have fail-soft after that. The other thing is, if your standalone system were to go down and the county system were to go down, we do have the New Jersey P6 system, which could be a backup in addition to those 2 channels that are at New Brunswick. So it was a little bit of a mischaracterization to say that there's no other backup other than those 2 conventional channels that are in North Brunswick. The
so
other
just-
thing...
You're talking fast. Just give me a second here, because
I got
I
you.
just, I listened to our consultant, and I specifically asked that question about, what we were looking at if something goes down and what would so there's how many redundancies then in addition to the county if
We have the dual redundant network controllers, which there's 2 levels of redundancy there. If both of our network controllers were to fail, we have distributed control point technology, which then transfers that technology out to each one of the antenna sites, which allows them to operate independently, still in the trunked mode. Okay, so there's
So
your
up to
3rd level
3.
of redundancy. You then, if that entire scenario failed, could go over to the New Jersey P6 system, which is a P25 Phase 2 compliance system. Okay, and then if that failed, then you still have the 2 conventional channels that are at New Brunswick. So
6?
we have multiple levels of redundancy there. The other thing that is part of our offering that we did not get a chance to discuss with VCOM because we had no open communication about it was, in our scenario, and I want to speak to the interoperability, if Sayreville were to buy a standalone system, we were going to set our network switching center up in what's called a peer-to-peer configuration so that it would be in constant communication with the county's network controller. The difference in that scenario is if an ambulance goes out of town, you roam into New Brunswick, you lose coverage on the Sayreville system, you would automatically, like a cellular telephone, roam over to the county system without having to remember, oh yeah, I gotta switch that button. When you're in a police chase, you're chasing somebody down the turnpike, you don't want to have to remember in the middle of a critical situation that I have to switch from one system to another. And the peer-to-peer configuration that we were offering with our configuration, it automatically roams from one system to the other as a handoff. So these are all things that we feel are very relevant that weren't necessarily conveyed to you. And we did not get an opportunity to sit down with VCOM and talk about these additional value-added features that we had with our offering. And I think it would be a disservice to Sayreville if we didn't have the opportunity to do that. And that's why I'm stating what I'm stating, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Motorola?
Mayor,
Wait a minute,
Mayor, I have a question also.
Go ahead. Ladies first.
Art can go, he has not said a lot, so go ahead, Art.
I have a question, Mr. Foley. You said that it's a common practice to go outside of the state contract to do things. You
What I
had
said was
submitted a proposal, Motorola submitted a proposal. Then all of a sudden, we're at a meeting, and all of a sudden, your proposals are coming back. Who asked you to submit a second proposal?
We were asked to submit clarifications for what VCOM
No,
asked us
before
for.
that. Why did you decide to submit another proposal? Was there anybody from the county, like the county administrator, who asked you to submit a proposal?
No, sir.
The reason I'm asking that, at a meeting on April 4th, the county administrator said, quote, "The county will match Motorola's pricing with TPS." So he was negotiating for you. He's the county administrator negotiating for a vendor and changing a state contract. I have also filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office, also with the county prosecutor's office about this. I mean, let's be above board. You submit a proposal, and then you're asked questions, and we've got 5 pages, and you still haven't completed all the answers, and now you're telling us there's more stuff. I agree with the mayor. It doesn't seem right. There seems to be a lot of problems and a lot of trust factor in this whole proposal.
Well, first of all, Mr. Rittenhouse, the county administrator never negotiated on our behalf, and if that took place, we have no knowledge of it. Secondly, the other thing I want to take issue with, or that I would like to put more information out there to clarify something you said earlier, is the only reason the Sheriff's Department is not yet on the new county network is because Verizon was on strike, and there were some phone lines that needed to be moved, and that has not been able to be done yet. It's not a technical issue. It's not because there's any issue. County prosecutor is active on the system. Sheriff's office, the fire marshal's office, county health, MCAT, Highland Park, Jamesburg, South Plainfield is being cut over as we speak. So there are plenty of agencies that have been up and running for quite some time. So the county system has been performing brilliantly, and we have excellent in-building coverage inside New Brunswick. We did exhaustive testing inside the hospital and inside the various county buildings that are there.
Now, from the sheriff's officers I've spoken to and from the other people I've spoken to that have those radios, that's not the case.
Well, Mr. Kriz is here. I don't know if he wants to speak to it, but that would be his domain.
Thank you.
You might want to stay there. The 2 council women have questions for you.
I don't know. On the proposal that's before us right now, have you seen a copy of this? Have you seen these?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Can you
have
give
a
him one
copy?
so he knows what I'm talking about?
You guys really want to do this now? We're going to have to come back because they're going to
Mayor,
amend
this is
their
a
proposal.
a-
Why don't you ask your questions, Mary?
Thank you. Thank you. You look, I think it's page 8. Do you have that there?
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Mayor has someplace.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
The items that the mayor was mentioning and you were mentioning, VCOM has added those items to this list. Are they part of the 1,860,000, or are they indeed will have to be added on to that figure?
No, ma'am, they are part of the 1,860,000. The only one that I would address would be the $15,000, because what we were specifically requested to do by VCOM was to have our proposals vetted by the state prior to bringing them in. There is no way to just put a miscellaneous $15,000 line item on a state contract proposal. We can't do that.
Was my understanding that Motorola lumped it in with their thing too? It wasn't a separate line item. It was lumped into their price. So what you're saying is that these figures, the total cost would be $1,860,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Also, right here, page 8, I'm sorry. They added it in because he couldn't find it.
I took
Yeah.
it off of this one. Okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question? Because believe it or
Go
not,
ahead,
what I
Vicki.
wanted to
I
ask.
want to move on to Motorola,
Okay.
because we're going to have to schedule yet another meeting.
So that, I mean, you heard me ask at nauseum here about the Motorola and the Harris. You mentioned the 95% guarantee, but I had concern, and I'd asked this multiple times, that Motorola is compatible with that county system in the event we went there. I mean, I don't want to seem like I don't want to think I'm discrediting you, but I've gotten different answers. Is it that simple if we went with Motorola standalone? In the event we have to switch over to the county, that we can just do that with a flip of a switch or a change of a dial? I mean, that really makes me think about things in a lot different perspective, a different way here.
Well, I mean, I certainly can't speak for my erstwhile friends at Motorola, but I do know that their radios, like ours, are P25 compliant. There are many scenarios where Motorola radios are used on Harris systems and vice versa. But when you do use one competitor's radio on another competitor's backbone, you will lose some advanced features. They're not totally compatible. For the most part, they're compatible, but there will be some nuances where you will have some challenges in getting them to do some advanced features like dynamic regrouping or maybe
So it's
OTAP
some
or
functionality
OTAR.
that
Yes,
may be
you will compromise some functionality.
Okay.
And that goes both ways.
Now, obviously, Motorola and Harris are two different companies. Now, in the event that one chooses to do upgrades or do something in one direction and another one does something in another direction, as time goes on, 10 years, 15 years down the line, is it possible that it would be more difficult for us to then be compatible with the Harris County system going down the line if we don't stay in line with what your system upgrades and changes are?
Well, I certainly can't speak for Motorola's software upgrades in the future, just like they certainly can't speak for ours. So that is a question for contemplation.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you can answer this or not. I remembered what I wanted to know. Maybe you said there was somebody from the county here? Did you say somebody was from the county here?
From Motorola.
Oh, there's nobody here from the county? Okay.
I'm interested in the two vendors.
Okay. There is? Okay. Well, I don't know whether I should be asking you or somebody from
Well,
the
you can
county.
ask this young man,
Okay.
since I run the meeting.
The 6 weeks, is that a reasonable figure? If we,
Oh, yeah.
from the time a contract is signed, I realize there's a lot more to go on before we get to that point, but,
Well, again, I can't speak for anyone else. I can tell you from the TPS and Harris perspective, we're certainly in a better position to meet that 6-week timeline. Can I guarantee 6 weeks? But it certainly would be no more than 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks.
We could really push the envelope and make it happen, yes.
Okay, because our radio system is really terrible.
Anything else, Mary?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to have the gentleman from Motorola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr.
you.
Honorable Council people. Thank you very much for your time.
If you would state your name, please.
Hello, my name is Marshall Bernstein. I'm the area sales manager for Motorola. I happen to have been the original salesperson for your Motorola trunk system about 20 years ago. So I seem like I aged a little.
I need you to hold it up a little.
Sure. But, you know, I want to thank Mayor and Council for all your questions, all your time, all your effort, and the committee who's put a lot of time and effort into this as well. Motorola has tried to work with the borough. We've handed in our bids. We've been compliant. We've been low and compliant. We stand ready to put the system in. We will expedite. I've heard some timelines. We will expedite the process greatly. We understand what Sayreville is, and we've worked with you for many years, and we look forward to the opportunity to serve you guys. So, any questions? I'm
Are
here.
there any questions for the gentleman from Motorola? Okay.
You can go first.
Okay, again, same question. Obviously, putting in our own standalone system is going to take more time than going off the county that, they already have it up and running. What would be your time frame from the time we sign a contract till we're up and running?
Well, the first thing is, once we would get a contract, and I do urge the borough to expedite the process because of the first responders out here. And, this system is in need of being replaced. And we would expedite the subscribers. We could ship them very, very quickly. Within a matter of a week or two, I could probably get subscribers out here. We could start the programming process. The programming onto the county system, and I'm sure the county would cooperate, we would, given us the necessary tools, we'll get you up and running just as quick as you could if you had a standalone or you went on the county system as a whole. That's what you could do up front. And then we would work on getting as quick as possible the, your standalone up and running. And we can expedite that process as well. So we are ready to do that. Obviously, we need an order to put that in motion.
So what you're saying is that right in the beginning, we'd be on the county system until our towers were,
Well,
core was taken
we could
care
be
of?
as quick as anybody, getting the equipment in. I've gotten, if you gave me an order tonight, I can maybe turn around in a week or so, have the equipment sitting here in Sayreville and start the programming process. So, I stand ready to get our forces ready to work. Motorola has more public safety systems in place in the state of New Jersey and around the country than anybody else. And I'm sure you've talked to many of your neighbors and friends and other towns, and we're very proud of that relationship we have with the other public safety communities. We've been here for 20 years. We do that because we earn that business. And we will earn that again with you guys of trying to expedite and move everything through in a quick and timely fashion.
Thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the things in the 7-minute meeting that we had in the back was, I know that the chief and they had said that Motorola really is, I guess, more experienced or more a part of this particular type of communications and safety than Harris.
Well, Harris is here. I'm not going to, try to, put them down at our expense. But I will say that Motorola has more P25 systems up and running in the state of New Jersey and around the country than any other vendor. And we have experience in doing that. Our crews are experienced in putting it in. We have local project managers, local engineers. We have a crew ready to roll on this. And, hopefully you'll look forward. As I said, we've worked with the consultant and the bids and the town and the borough, and we've supplied compliant offerings every time, low compliant bids.
Mm-hmm.
So we respectfully would like you to act.
Yeah.
And
No,
we ask for an award.
I did hear that you do specialize, I guess, if you will, but I had also heard that, I guess, Harris or Tactical, do you work in government securities? So it's, it's a little bit, you have the experience with that, but then I guess you are well-versed in, I don't know, I can't speak on behalf of your record, but is it true what I read that you cover almost all governmental agencies? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. No, I run the meeting.
That's what I
Have a
asked.
seat. Have a seat.
That's why I asked, do you mind?
All
I
right,
would
let's
like to.
get-
I,
Have another one.
but that's why I said, do you mind if I
I
just
do
heard?
mind, just finish it up.
No, that was my comment to him, I think,
Okay.
but then I did want
You
to.
understand we're going to another meeting, so we'll have another chance to go through this whole thing again.
So wait, we're
Are
going to
there
call.
any more
well,
questions for Motorola?
No, but I do have a question for
Are
Harris.
there any more questions
thank
for
you.
Motorola?
I have a question for Motorola. When did you find out that after your initial bid, there was going to be more bidding going on?
I think I was notified by the consultant and through the process that, I was asked to go ahead and give a best and final. So I think we originally, I don't have the dates in front of me.
Okay.
I I heard what Mr. Vlecko had said, and
So the dates
agree
that
with
were on the,
I agree with those dates. You know, we were asked to, for a price, we gave an original price. We were asked for a low, best and final, we gave that. We were asked for another scope, we did that. And it seemed from tonight's reading, and every time we were the low and compliant. And I understand that you guys have to do the due diligence, but I do ask, you know,
is
on
this,
behalf
an-
of the first responders here, that
is this a normal process for you? When
No,
you go
sir.
out to municipalities and all of a sudden you're rebidding and rebidding?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Any
Well-
other questions for Motorola?
I'd just like to say, you know, if it's going to save the town, you know, $500,000, you know, $300,000, that's what we're up here for. We're not up here to make this fast.
Well, I think, Mayor, you say that all the time, too. You want to do what's fiscally responsible. You want to provide the most services at the cheapest price. You know, I'm happy to see that in the due diligence of the council and everyone up here and the gentlemen that have been working on this, and ladies, that we were able to save, it appears from the initial bids, quite a substantial amount of money by having them come back and forth. And I'm getting definitely more education up here from what was originally pitched to me in the 7-minute meeting to really what some more of that fact may be. I did forget one of my questions when Harris was up, Tactical was up here.
Wait, Mr. Vlecko, if you would, please. Are you willing to go through one more of these, one more final analysis? It's all over.
The fourth best and final?
Yeah, the fourth best, I mean, there's whoever the loser is going to sue the borough. So the boroughs that
I guess
have
my
no win-
question to you, Mayor, is what would that process
I
be?
don't know. Accusations have been made that there was a lack of communication. I just want
If I can actually address that, maybe
Yep,
it'll
go
help.
ahead.
First of all, Mr. Foley had indicated that he looked for the opportunity to meet with us. The first proposal, he actually requested, and I wasn't there at the meeting, but my partner was at the meeting. They came to our office and went through the proposal. So they talked about redundancy, we talked about the county system, didn't talk about this peer-to-peer. We didn't talk about that specifically, but we had the opportunity was there. In addition, the line items where he said that they were included, if you look at these memos that were in there were specific state contract numbers and line items associated with the mobile installation and with the UPS systems, which didn't show up. Now, the other prices varied up and down a little bit. Again, we got a second best and final offer. Those prices went up and down. But in that second best and final offer, that same line item that was in there, those two, the UPS, which is about $100,000 worth of equipment, the UPS and services, the installation, there were specific line items that no longer showed up under a state contract line item number. So I hear what Mr. Foley's saying. However, the previous two versions had those numbers in there. So we can look at it, Mayor. I'd be happy to look at
Yep.
it again, but
You
I'm
know
not
what
sure
it
what
is?
we're going to look at.
I'm playing defense, Mr. Vlecko, because I've never had this much pressure to buy a particular brand. But that being said, we will do this one more time. The borough clerk will arrange for another date. But before that, I did want to ask the police chief and the fire chief to come up to give their opinions. Vinnie, do it. By the way, I do want to thank the firemen and several police officers for their courage. And as firemen run into a burning building, Lord knows where police officers have to run into putting their lives at risk. So I thank you, and we want to get you the resources that you feel most comfortable with. Vinnie, if you'd identify yourself for the record.
Vincent Moranowitz, Fire Chief, Saraville Fire Department. After looking over this new PowerPoint by VCOM, it still leaves a lot of unanswered questions. Not saying that he didn't do his homework, he did. But if you look at it, it's for 1 to 5 years, which is fine. But what about years 6 through 15? You're going to have right now if you go to the county, they're going to wipe off the first 5 years of their, what was it called? They had their fees to join. Well, there's no fee listing for 6 through 15. So what's going to happen if you sign that contract? Are they going to price gouge it? I mean, would you say buy a house on a 15-year mortgage and okay the first 15 years or the first 5 years and not know what's going to happen through years 6 through 15? They could up it as much as they want, and there's nothing you can do about it. After having talked with the police chief and also VCOM, I would agree with them and go with the Motorola standalone system. It'll give you the best bang for your buck. It also, the way I worked it out, based on the county's pricing, is it would actually be cheaper to do that than to join the county with Harris Radios. And that's just based off of the pricing that was given on the first meeting, with the county's subscription fees of $45,000, then upping it to $50,000. Then for the last 2 years, it was $55,000. If you put that all together, it's actually cheaper to stay with your own system instead of jumping ship. So I prefer Motorola.
Thank you, Chief. Chief?
Thank you. I, for one, really don't want to come back again. We've spent a great deal of time.
Understood.
Not simply the 5 years in which we've been banging the doors saying we need a new system, because it's not a new pitch, it's an old pitch. And it's one that really went on deaf ears for many, many years. But for the last 18 months, we probably have lived it, breathed it, sleeped it, and whatever else you could possibly do with it. I respect that the work that our consultant's done. We chose them because they're independent. We chose them because they don't have an allegiance from one to the other. I respect both vendors, but I would also expect that both vendors would give their best pitch, in the term that Mrs. Kilpatrick said. We've done our homework. We've done a comprehensive job reviewing ad nauseum the radio systems and the options that are available. We took away the vendor issues, and we looked at it just purely from an academic and mechanical perspective. What works best for us? And the lucky thing that happened for us is that the fact that we waited so long, we're in a position that we've never been in before, that Sayreville actually is going to win here. It's an opportunity to get a radio system, whichever one you choose, at probably the most competitive price you're ever going to see. To wait, obviously, gives the option that at some point these prices will go away, and if we had acted earlier, the prices would have been much higher. It seems counterintuitive to keep asking for additional information. I would think, and I would even ask our borough attorney, if it doesn't appear in the contract proposal, is it really there? If we're dealing with multiple contract proposals and each time one is different, which one do you choose? And really, where is the trust? Because that really worries me. If we're going to contract with someone for 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years, I need to know what service they're going to provide and be confident of that. And I think that's a very important issue here. Whether we go standalone or to the county, I think both systems are going to work very well for us. As far as standalone, however, it puts us in a very particular situation where we still can maintain and manage for ourselves. That's not a laborious situation. It doesn't require multiple officers at police headquarters. These systems are pretty well fail-safe, and the system that we currently have up until the last year or two was just that, pretty well fail-safe. It didn't require an awful lot of assistance on our part, other than if a radio broke, an antenna was split, or something else was necessary. And that work still needs to be done today, and it'll need to be done tomorrow as well. If you look at the best bang for the buck, if you take the intrinsic value of having that system and controlling that system at a time where it's not simply an expense, but really a cost-effective expense, there really isn't another option. To be able to continue to have control over a radio system for the next 15 years is an immeasurable benefit for the borough of Sayreville. It takes out all the questions from years 6 through 15, 1 through 15. We don't have to worry about talk groups. We don't have to worry about programming. We don't have to worry about issues of other towns coming on. We don't have to worry about infighting in politics or any of that other nonsense. It's ours. And it's a system for us we can manage ourselves. I grant you, if it was a $4 or $5 million system, we wouldn't be having the discussion. But we're having this discussion because we're at a competitive advantage. And this is the last time we'll be there. You saw the forethought of getting those new frequencies in order to be able to be in this position. If we go into the other direction, you're going to lose your channels, and we're not going to have an opportunity to move back. This is really your best opportunity to continue to manage a system the way Sarah would like to do, and that's why we had the recommendation that we have. Again, I really don't want to come back again. I appreciate the amount of time and effort that each one of you have put into this, and these questions are fantastic, and I really hope we've answered every one of you. And we're prepared to stay here all night if we have to answer more questions. But much like you said, Mary, we need a system. Maybe I don't need it tomorrow just to get a system, but we need a system as soon as possible. So I really don't want to return, but I do appreciate your time, and I do stand by your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Doug Umbrick, if you would like to come and give your opinion. Okay, is there a similar representative from the firemen? Okay, so we have it. So we will.
Hey, just one question, just to hit on something that the chief said. If we went with the county, the 700 frequency that we applied for, we lose. Dominic, anyone?
Yeah, I wanted to know that too. Or can that be?
Well, if you don't build a system, you've got to turn their frequencies back. Or you got to do something with them. Basically, you have to file with the FCC after a short period of time that you're either on the air or you're not on the air. If you don't file that you're on the air, what'll happen is they actually will withdraw them automatically.
If we
And
went
then
on to
down the
county-
road, will they still be available if, say, in...
Probably not. No, they're in pretty high demand right now.
So
Especially in
once
this-
we lose it, we'd be tied into the county forever.
Probably, yeah.
And
I
there's
mean,
no
you're in the
cap-
New York metro area, and everyone in the New York metro area is competing for the same frequencies.
And there's no cap to what they could charge us after the 5 years? They're letting us off for 5 years. After that, is there a cap on what they could charge?
There's
County
the
fees.
original agreement only addressed 5 years. It didn't address anything after 5
So
years.
there's no cap on what they could charge after 5
I
years?
don't know what the county would do.
We're at their mercy. Thank you.
Before I go to the open public portion, are there any more questions?
I have a
from the
question for
council?
Dominic, Mr. Mayor. Sorry I had to get up again.
Y- y-
This might be a world record. I've been talking a while. If we're going to come back here and we're going to talk about Harris's proposal, they were non-compliant on April 25th. They were non-compliant on May 18th. There's an 8-page tome of a memo discussing issues. As somebody that does vendors and contractors for a living, this is going to be their 4th bite at the apple. I mean, what are we trying to get from the next meeting? I think we're all a little confused as to
What it
they're-
is, it's a defensive move because I don't want to end up in court by whoever doesn't get the bid. I want to make sure it's exhausted, and I'm not going to put a long timeline on this. This has to be wrapped up this month.
I understand the mayor's litigious
but-
concerns, but
but I-
what are we asking for? I mean, just so that we all know what
I'm
we're
just
waiting
looking for documented, complete and total communication. It's done. One more presentation.
With all due respect, Mayor, I think what we're talking about here is we either go back to the vendors if they're interested in giving us the 4th best and final, or we take TPS's
I'd like to
statements.
see a
and-
list for whatever it is that anybody has any objection to, a written list on your analysis, and if that needs to be corrected or not, or if that complies with contract law.
Or Mayor, I'm sorry, what we could do is the people who tabled it could untable it, and we could take a vote on it and end it right now and get it done.
What's that?
The ordinance was tabled. Those people who tabled it,
You want to untable it, Mary? make a motion to,
I have a question. Mike, the mayor has stated that we could be in legal jeopardy with this, with the non-compliance. Could we be sued?
Well, you
can always be sued.
Well, but you said it's
We're not gonna
almost
talk
a
about
probability, so I don't want to stick us in the
You
middle
know,
of a
Mayor,
lawsuit.
anyone can file an objection. I think what's transpired here is that the gentleman who presented before had indicated that the information he presented to VCOM wasn't either understood or was misunderstood, and there was some confusion with respect to the numbers that were presented. I think VCOM hit the nail on the head that I'm not quite sure if another meeting is required, but certainly clarification as to the information that Harris had presented. Because Harris is indicating that there was information presented and it was misunderstood by VCOM. So if you ask my opinion, I think I would ask for that clarification. I don't think you need another meeting. I think you could probably vote it on at the next council meeting or whenever it's on the agenda, subject to VCOM getting the clarification that that's being requested.
Would you untable and hold a vote tonight?
Would I?
What, he said that we should get
I would
clarification
ask-
first.
Two
We
separate
should not.
questions.
I would wait for the VCOM analysis based on the information that Harris presented, because there's obvious some sort of confusion that was presented, especially with the numbers, because I think it was highlighted that the 3 missing numbers were included. So I do think you need some sort of analysis by VCOM saying, hey, look, we included it, we didn't include it, and have that analysis presented, and then you could probably do it at the next council meeting. Well, no, that'd be on Monday, probably the council meeting afterwards.
Why don't we shoot for next Monday?
I'm not quite
At
sure
the
if that...
council meeting,
Mary,
absolutely. At the
if
council
if
meeting.
you take it off the table, then we'll put it on for next Monday.
Absolutely.
All right,
So
so the
moved.
motion is the police radios are going to be back on the agenda, and they will be introduced as an ordinance next Monday, subject to our consultant VCOM attesting that all issues are resolved, all communication issues.
So moved.
Second.
All, roll call?
Me. Yeah.
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lembo,
Yes.
Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Okay, so next Monday it is.
Are we going to open it to
All
the
right.
floor?
I appreciate your patience. I appreciate everyone's patience involved in this. That being said, I'm going to go to the open public portion for questions or comments on any and all issues. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Who is that? Who is that?
Mayor, Council, my name is Joe Krizza. I'm the Department Head of Public Safety and Health for Middlesex County, New Brunswick, New Jersey. I heard a lot of testimony today or information that's being considered on your radio system. What I really want to comment on is 2 things. Like yourselves, the county had an antiquated system that needed upgrading. So we did extensive research on the system. We identified what we figured was the best system, was a non-proprietary system, P25, Phase 2, 7,800 megahertz with microwave redundancy. We currently have 8 towers. The county is in the process, or we are currently in negotiations with several other towns who are testing our radios. We have heard a few issues concerning the radios. We have identified them and corrected them. Being in law enforcement to some degree since 1976, I have a vested interest in ensuring that my public safety counterparts are protected and have essential services through communication. As we saw in 9/11, one of the greatest deficiencies was a lack of communication for our first responders, which led to catastrophic events, deaths, more injuries, etc. We looked through our county system to identify a system that the county could utilize in its entirety to take care of effective communications countywide. So when any first responder went and left the borough of Saraville, they would have 95% in-building coverage throughout Middlesex County. So this was a guarantee that was given to us by Tactical Public Safety, was incorporated in our agreement, and we chose to go with that system. I feel comfortable that this system would provide, by coming onto the county system, would provide you with excellent communications, not only in the borough, but throughout Middlesex County. I did hear some apprehension about what's going to be the agreement after the 5 years free grace period. I can assure you, now I cannot speak for the Board of Chosen Freeholders because of course I'm not a freeholder, but I assure you that their willingness to cooperate with not only the borough of Saraville, but the 24 other municipalities in Middlesex County to coordinate effective and efficient communications countywide, they will work with you any way they possibly can. One of those, just a small example of how that was demonstrated, back last year, Saraville came to the county and said, we have a major problem. Our radio system is crashing. Our first responders cannot communicate. We took 100 brand new radios in the box and gave them to the borough of Saraville to utilize anytime they required and their system went out. Not only did we give them radios, we gave them the associated components with those radios. So I think that example alone demonstrates Middlesex County's commitment to not only the borough of Saraville, but to all first responders countywide. And I just wanted to say that we're not looking for a revenue stream here. Our system costs $9 million, and we have to maintain that system for our first responders, our public works, our AWOCs. And I know Councilman Rittenhouse said, why wasn't the sheriff on it? Well, the sheriff's going to be on it later this week. We chose to take the lower, less important groups and put them on first, and then we would coordinate all effective communications countywide. So in closing, I would just like to say that I feel the county is a good neighbor. We're trying to work the best with the borough and the rest of the municipalities. And I would encourage you to look at all the options. And as far as I'm concerned personally, every one of you has to do what's best for your own particular borough. And you have to do the best for the taxpayers of Saraville. And the county is offering you an opportunity, we believe, to save you some money and to give you effective and efficient communications. Thank you.
Can I ask a question there? The frequencies.
The frequencies. Is there any way the county could use them so we wouldn't lose them? I mean, I know that if you don't, like in anything, you don't use it, you lose it. But so that if the case being, and let's say we went with the county and we were totally unhappy, we'd be stuck if we lost our frequencies.
I think, and I'm not exactly a 100% frequency expert, but if you co-license them with us, I believe you could take them back. I would have to find that out from the vendors, from the consultant, but I believe you could take those back. And one of the other considerations that I did not mention was in working with our county partners throughout the municipalities, if you have something that can assist Middlesex County in bettering its radio network, that also becomes an option that we can look at. For example, by co-licensing your frequency, that may reduce years 6 through 15.
Joe, I think we're entering into negotiations, so the counselor is would caution you not to continue in this
Okay,
vein.
that's fine. I was just asked the question.
No, I understand. I understand.
Thank you.
Would you know if that 6 to 8 week time frame, I don't know whether that's your area of expertise, is feasible?
I can't answer that. That would be with either vendor you chose.
Okay, thank you.
There was a fireman who wanted to come on, or is it Fred? Come on up, Fred.
First, Fred Block, I'm actually recently put onto the borough's technology committee. I've been doing a little bit of research into this, and I'm going to skip a lot of the things that have been a concern. I'm going to go really two things. I was a Long Branch first aider for 15 years, 14 years and change active. And our procedure was always in Long Branch. Our radios never reached out of town. So whenever we were leaving to go to a hospital like Jersey Shore, which was out of our range, we would automatically jump onto the channel, announce to the police department, and say, we're going out of area, and we will be on, New Jersey EMS 2 or something like that, so that they know how to reach us. So that was like a procedure, I believe that was discussed before. That was a procedure that was done, and it would probably take a lot of the concern about that out. My biggest concern is that everything I've read about a trunk system says that firefighters tend to not like it. And let me expand on that, and maybe somebody can answer for me what my concern is. The biggest problem is that when you're going to key up on a microphone with a trunk system, you have to get a channel. The system has to go back and forth and has to find a channel, and it allocates a channel to you. And there's like 2 to 3 seconds or so where that goes back and forth in an exchange. Again, hopefully somebody can clarify. I just want to know the details as to whether or not that could affect real-time communications in a situation where you don't have time. And if there was a failover to going to an analog system in the event you do need real-time and you could jump off of the repeater to get that real-time communication.
Fred, you understand you're speaking Greek to me right now.
I apologize.
No. What I'm going to recommend is take that red chair right there, and then if you'd be kind enough, I appreciate your passion. Either now or at the end of the meeting, I think they'd be more than happy to answer all your questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Are there any other questions or comments? Being no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the public portion be closed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Oh, wait a
What,
minute.
I just want to say one thing. I'm sorry. We've been here long enough, but before we walk away, to the point before, when Saraville came last year to the county and said we needed help because our radios are going down, as myself speaking here, I was here and I was just completely dumbfounded that this was able to happen here in this town. Didn't realize. And I want to say thank you, because it's my understanding that we still have your radios and we still have to use them and resort to them often while we deal with the system issues that we have. And to your comment before, yes, Middlesex County has been a good neighbor to us. And regardless of what direction we go in, I know that the county will continue to be there for us. I want to say, Mary and I really had a lot of questions after that 7-minute meeting in that back room. And I can't tell you how much I am always appreciative and, quite frankly, scared often for what you guys get called out to do, whether it be fire, police, EMS. And I have done my best to do my due diligence, answer every question possible, ask every question, and get the answers that I feel I can put my head on the pillow at night and feel like I'm doing the best that I can while I'm here. Chief, you've done an excellent job. Tom Bracken, you've done an excellent job. VCOM, and Mr. Bacco also, and I'm appreciative of it. But I don't appreciate being rushed and being told we have to answer these things right now. We should be given the opportunity to speak and do our due diligence up here. And quite frankly, Mayor, I get upset when you force us and say, hurry up, let's get through this, let's get through this. Their lives are more important than that. I'm glad that we're finally moving forward, and come Monday, we'll be able to take some kind of a vote. I'm glad I got the answers. And for anybody that was uncomfortable or unhappy with that, I'm sorry, but I feel like we did what was right here today. I see one officer in the back that I had spoken to at my daughter's communion, and he said, Vic, why don't you reach out to police officers that are using the county system, the people that are on the road that can really attest to whether the system is good, bad, or ugly. And I just want that officer to know, and all of you to know, I reached out to 4 different municipalities and spoke to the guys that ride around. And the answers that I got made me feel good, knowing that whether we go standalone or whether we go with the county, you're going to be protected and you're going to have the communications that you need. That's all.
Okay, motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
I still have one more question I have to ask them.